The Intellivision is a fun and interesting part of gaming history. It's got a great original library of games and a very active homebrew community. Unfortunately, like most systems of its age, it's got two major flaws. Number one is this affront to humanity right here, the RF video out. This gives you a very compressed video and audio signal and is difficult to hook up and capture footage from if you're someone who likes to capture footage of their gameplay. Getting this to HDMI requires you to first demodulate the RF signal and then upscale through several different processes. The other big problem is that these consoles are approaching 50 years old. Capacitors die, chips die, the actual controllers themselves wear down. And so even finding one of these in good condition, it is a ticking time bomb. Eventually, something on the board or something of the hardware will fail. Thankfully, there are options out there to improve your Intellivision experience, and I'm going to show you two of them. In front of me, I have what may look to you as two normal Intellivision systems, but they are very special. The first one over here was donated to the channel by Intellivision Collector, and this one right here was anonymously donated, but the service and the mod here was performed by Ivory Tower Collections. Now, I am on the record as being the kind of person that really doesn't like for people to mod their consoles if they don't have to. Obviously, your own property, you can do what you want. But at the end of the day, if it means that something that wasn't going to be played gets played, I have no problems with it. The first one we're going to look at here is the Intellivision Collector. This is a Model 1 Intellivision here. This is from Intellivision Collector. He now has a service where you can purchase a refurbished and modded console from him. This one here has been modded to have the system changer compatibility, as well as an AV mod. It is a composite mod, and I am assured that it is one of the best mods on the market. It also has new discs put on the controllers here. Everything has been checked. If the controllers needed new Mylar, they have new Mylar. And if we go down the list on everything that's been done here, there's been a rebuild of the power supply board, replacing all capacitors, replacing the power resistor, replacing the ribbon cable connector, which is a common issue on these early model Intellivisions, testing all voltage test points and ensuring that all voltages are optimal from the transformer and output of the power board. Also, the logic board has been refurbished, so replacing the brittle ribbon cable with a pigtailed header cable, replacing the twin 3609 transistors, which is a common failure item on Intellivisions, replacing all capacitors, ensuring all signals are optimal using an oscilloscope, installing an AV composite mod board, which is Luke's own design, and installing a no-drill RCA jack. Now, spoiler alert, I opened this up and looked at it before filming this piece, and you will see how excited I get about that no-drill part. Moving on, like I said before, he's performed the system changer mod to the logic board. And last but not least, he does refurbish the controllers. He replaces the round discs with new ones, ensures that the controllers work 100% by replacing the interior Mylar if required, and the entire system is then tested by using the latest MTE 201 version 4.1b test cartridge to ensure that the system has no faults. All right, so here is the Intellivision Collector refurbished and modded console. Just as I received it, I even left the little tape on there. It says AV and SC, which is System Changer Mod, and tested. Very good that it's tested. As you can see here, it's not in the best shape, but it's in good serviceable shape. It is a refurbished console, so whenever you're buying something that's refurbished or used, obviously odds of it being in mint condition are pretty low, at least aesthetically. So, you know, if you're going to buy one of these from Luke, and you're really anal retentive on something that needs to look as good as possible, I'm sure you can ask him for pictures of specific consoles and talk to him for that. These are $200 Canadian. So if you are in the United States, you can get a really good deal based on the exchange rate right now. But we'll take a quick look at the controllers. I'm not going to open the controllers up. However, it is stated that if the controller is having issues, that he does replace the Mylar inside. And these are, as you can probably tell by the difference in gold color, these are brand new discs and they feel absolutely great. No grittiness, so there's no dirt in there. Both controllers are really, really smooth with the disc. All the buttons are responsive. They pop back up. One of the problems with my old Intellivision was the number 4 button would quite often get stuck and you'd have to like press it a couple more times for it to pop up. I don't have any problems with any of the buttons doing that here, and I have play tested this. So let's take a look at the rest of this console, particularly the back. So as you can see here, I'll move it so that we can see, the RF connection is still there and it is still fully functional. However, we've got this added box here with our left and right audio and our video signal for a composite out. This is really cleanly mounted to kind of the undercarriage here. As far as mods go, it's very tasteful and it does not remove the functionality of the original. So you could still use this exactly like it was original stock, zero problems, and be happy with that. Obviously, I'm going to show the video quality of everything that comes out, but this right here is the big mod that we're looking for. So we can flip this over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up and we can look at the quality of work that is done here. I'm sure it'll be great, but let's take a look and show you. All right, so I've got the top off here. We've got both our controllers just kind of hanging out, and you can see here there's a little bit of tape put on the switch so that the on-off switch just sits a little more secure and hopefully doesn't fall off, because I know that is a problem with some of the older systems. Yeah, everything looks pretty good here. Reusing of some slightly rusty screws, but I mean, that's not going to cause an issue. I'll probably give those a little sand and a touch-up. Yeah, we can see our thermal paste on the voltage regulators here. Power board has had resistors and capacitors replaced, it seems. Not all of them, but some of them. Certainly the capacitors have been. Yeah, but to take a deeper look at this, we've got to remove this top board and a whole pile of other screws here. So I'm not going to disconnect the controllers. These are really finicky wires. One thing we do notice here is that this this cable here connects the power board to the main board. It is usually this flimsy little cable that delaminates. It has been replaced with a much nicer and more robust cable. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little more unscrewing here, hopefully as little as I can, and we'll take a further look at what is going on with this mod right here. And hey, you know what? I see this right here. This is awesome. Okay, we're gonna focus on this. You see these little vent holes. Normally, what somebody modding a system would do is drill holes into the side of the console and put your composite jacks out that way. This is really clever, and I love this because this makes it so that you could put this system back to stock if you wanted to. And that is this little box that holds the composite mod, the composite jacks, is just screwed on through the vent holes, and the wires going to the composite mod goes through a vent hole. You could remove this composite box and the outside of your system would look 100% stock. I absolutely adore this. Everybody who's doing a composite mod, whether it be on your own system or somebody else's, should do something like this. Luke, thank you. You are an absolute hero for doing this. Because people know what I think about drilling holes in the side of consoles. So thank you, Luke. If nothing else, even if everything is really poorly done, that you are an absolute hero. So good job. I'm going to take the screws off and we'll take a look at the board. All right, so the top shield was on, it hasn't been resoldered back on, but it is proving to be a little difficult to remove. So I've just gingerly unplugged the composite out so that I can flip over the board and show you guys. As you can see here very clearly, capacitors replaced. The board is nice and clean. We've got some resistors that look like they've been replaced. Yeah, and then right here is the composite and video shunt, it says, an RF shunt, version 2.2 from 2024. Intellivision Collector has told me, Luke has told me, that this is one of the best composite mods on the market today. And so it has been installed onto this board. Our RF box is still there, and this has been, I'm going to presume, I'm not going to try to pull that off, but I'm going to presume double-sided taped onto the bottom of the RF box right there. So you've got your RF out here, and this cable attaches to this cable over here for your composite out jacks. Yeah, it's looking pretty good in here. Yeah, these are nice flexible cables, so it's not like they're getting stiff and putting pressure on the joints. I like that. This is wired, this little jump is wired nicely in there. Pretty high quality work. This is what I would expect from a modded system. You know, neat wires, not, you know, I've seen modded systems where like this jump would be like a really long wire or too tight of a wire, and that would put pressure on the joints. Or a really long wire will make it more difficult to stuff in, and it could also get caught or snagged on things. So this is quite good. I'm pretty happy with the quality of what is here. This is our channel switch right here. But yeah, so if you are purchasing one of these kind of preset units, this is the quality of work you'll get, and I think the quality of work is up to snuff. It looks pretty good to me. Yeah, so that is the Intellivision Collector modded system. He has a ton of these, and you can order one from him. I'm going to put this back together off camera, but before you do and before you make that decision, let's take a look at the quality of video that this outputs. We're going to look at both the RF and the video, because this composite mod does not make it so that you can't use your RF. All right, what we're looking at here is the RF output of the system from Intellivision Collector. Like I mentioned, the AV mod on the system does not impede the RF out. In fairness, this is a really good RF signal. Yours is not likely to be as good due to the refurbishment that's been done here. That said, it's still RF. You can see lots of noise in the picture, a little bit of bleeding between colors, and the audio has this kind of soft sound. Not bad, but not the best either. Okay, now let's slide in the composite output from the AV and take a look at them side by side. If you're expecting miracles, this isn't it. However, it is a big improvement. Keep in mind that this is just being upscaled with a cheap Amazon AV to HDMI converter, but gone is that background noise, color bleeding is greatly reduced with crisper edges to the graphics. The colors themselves are a little deeper and richer as well. Lastly, the audio has a crisper quality to it. Now, I will confess there's something comforting and nostalgic about the soft, warm sound that the RF outputs, but the visual improvement of the composite mod greatly offsets that in my opinion. Especially on a CRT screen, this would look phenomenal, even if it's only because of the reduced noise in the picture. Now, this one is a complete service. You can go on to Intellivision Collector right now and simply purchase one of these consoles. However, the other service that we're going to be looking at is a service from Ivory Tower Collections. This here is more of a custom service. I received this console without controllers, it did come with a power supply, and without video cable. However, on the back here, you can see something really, really special. That right there is a Genesis 1 model DIN connector that allows you to output video in many different formats. You can buy DIN cables that have composite out. You can get S-video out. You can get RGB through a SCART. You can get HDMI or component video as well. Another neat thing about this console is that despite the fact that we no longer have an RF jack, this channel 3 and 4 switch, it is still fully functional. However, it no longer switches channels. It switches between the two different Intellivision color palettes. Now, I could go on and on about what Jesse did to this, but he actually sent me a video where he explained the whole process and the history of this console. So I'm actually going to use a little bit of that and let Jesse explain what's been done in his own words.
Well, I did go ahead and replace most of the capacitors in the console. I say most because the large main power filter capacitor, I don't actually have those on hand to get easily and quickly, but I checked it out and tested it and it seems to be reading just fine, so I don't anticipate any initial issues with that. And all of the others, because I had them on hand, I went ahead and replaced. The other thing I replaced is, if you're familiar with the Model 2, you know that it's got that dual function power on off and reset functionality built into the one switch. And as a result, it can be kind of finicky on powering off. At least on default, a lot of these Intellivisions, it seems like you have to hold that button down for what seems like 10 seconds before the thing will shut off. Otherwise, it'll just reset, right? By changing one component on the power supply board, specifically a resistor with a much lower value resistor, we actually decrease the amount of delay that's required to power off the console. So now you only have to hold this button down for a couple of seconds, and when you let go, it'll power right off. Or obviously, if you just push it really quickly, that'll do a standard soft reset on the game that you're playing. So that's all been done. The other thing that was done is it has a new fuse installed. A lot of these Model 2s, at least the earlier original models, had a fuse, an inline fuse that went from the power input port to the rest of the system. And for whatever reason, I'm assuming cost-cutting measures, Mattel, in the later half of making these consoles, stopped putting in that fuse and just installed a jumper to just bypass it, basically. So whenever I encounter that on these Model 2s, I actually do go ahead and reinstall a replacement Pico fuse in its place, just like it was on the original, just as an additional line of security, in case of any short circuits or anything faulty from the power supply side. It's not that big a deal. Again, I was already having to replace some of the capacitors in the system, plus the one major project as well. So it was not that big a deal. So that has also been done. You've got the new fuse installed. And then, of course, last is the big upgrade, and that is that you do have one of my last remaining RGB boards from Crayon King, his Orange Peel version 3, installed into this Intellivision. And specifically the way that I do it is, about a year ago, I designed some replacement PCBs that allow me to install the mini DIN jacks of various types in place of where the RF modulator used to be. And one advantage of that particular setup is it allows me to install the jack directly in place of where the RF modulator output was, but also allows me to install it in such a way that it plugs in facing upright. On a lot of these consoles previous to this, the way that I had to mount these, actually was what we call dead bug style, which is installing the AV jack upside down, because we actually solder it down in place along the jacket or the outer shielding of that port, because it's all metal and it acts as the main ground. So that used to be how we did it, but that meant that the plug was technically upside down. So you'd have to know that and remember that, so that when you plugged your cables in, you'd have to plug the cable into the back upside down. Some people would forget this, and it could damage the pins of the cables or damage the ports. So yeah, another reason why I came up with my new PCB design the way I did is it allows me to have the right height where that port is, to fit properly, and also to be upright. And then of course the entire system was cleaned out inside and out. So, I got rid of any of the dirt and dust and kind of just grossness, spots and speckling that was on this thing originally, and got it cleaned up. Now, a couple of features. If you're not familiar with the RGB board, it does provide 2 pallets. And the way that I install and wire these up, which has kind of been the standard that a lot of other people have been doing, or at least they've been following suit with the same method, is you can actually use the channel select switch on the back to switch between the pallets. But the cool thing is that, that way there might be some games that you think look better on one palette versus the other. And you can actually make that change on the fly while the game is running. So it's not like you have to change it and then reset the game or power the console off and on for that to take effect. It takes effect immediately. The specific port that I've used for the output on this particular Model 2 Intellivision, we've already talked about this a little bit in some private messages on Facebook regarding cable types, but I did install a 9-pin mini DIN. Now, it's been wired up in the same exact fashion as a Sega console would have used, specifically the Model 2 version of the Sega Genesis. What this allows us to do is, of course, we have the full RGB capability in place, plus I've got all the audio in place, but it also has composite. And the reason for that is because a lot of the RGB cables for the Genesis system require the composite video to work, especially some of the specific built-in scalar cables like the RAD2X, things like that. They rely on what they call a C-Sync or a composite video sync signal to function properly. So that's another reason why that's been wired in.
Ivory Tower Collections is really more of an a la carte service. Most people will send them their consoles in order for him to mod. It is not very common that he will mod a system and just sell it like that. We also have a situation where, in the case of this, I already had an Intellivision 2 with controllers, so he sent me one without controllers. There is no video cable. There was a power cable that he sent, but what he's done is he's gone in here, he's refurbished the system, and he's modded it, and it's kind of for the needs of the customer. It is also a premium service. He is very reasonable with his pricing considering what he does and the quality of work that's in here. But it is not going to be super cheap. But what he is really going for is to give this system another 40, 50 years and hopefully have it become some kind of family heirloom that you can pass on to your kids, and then your kids can play Intellivision too. And I think that's really cool, and he definitely takes a lot of pride in his work. Okay, now let's take a look at the Intellivision 2 serviced by Ivory Tower Collections. So obviously this is a refurbished unit. It came to me just like this with no controllers. Depending on what service you're asking from Jesse, yours might have controllers, it might not. That is completely up to you to deal with Jesse on that. But it did come with an aftermarket power supply. So I had the power supply and I had the base unit. I had to provide my own controllers and I had to purchase a cable that operates with it. And so let's take a look at that. Right here, you'll see that instead of the standard RF, there is now a DIN connector. And this is wired to be the same as the Sega Genesis DIN connectors. So Jesse was incredibly thorough with what all of my options were for getting cables for this. Unfortunately, the one he really recommended was back ordered and I really wanted to get going. So I actually just hopped on Amazon and I was able to purchase a Sega Genesis DIN connector that would output HDMI. And I'll be showing you the footage from all of these back to back later, but that's what I'm using right now. In the future, I would like to get the cables that he recommended because they will be more reliable and theoretically at least, do a better job. Here you've got your power port, obviously, and then the channel 3 and channel 4 actually is still a switch that is usable, but since we don't have RF, this has now been wired to be 2 different color palettes that the Intellivision board can output. And so, depending on the game, you might prefer that color palette, or you might prefer that color palette. I find the channel 4 color palette to be better for most games. It's brighter, it's more vibrant. I will show you both of those in the game footage. And then obviously we still have our stickers on there. Again, your specific unit may look different. Well, maybe in different condition. Obviously it'll be different because every unit is different and in different shape. But this one is actually in really good shape. There's a little bit of yellowing, as you can see. That does not bother me. This thing is a workhorse for my channel. So we're gonna open this up. I've already taken the 2 screws off the bottom, opening up a Intellivision Model 2 and looking around inside, so much easier than an Intellivision one. So you just take out those 2 screws on the bottom and this thing opens. And you can see it's been cleaned on the inside too. It's very, very nicely done. And here is the circuit board. We'll take this little bit off here. This was serviced in November of 2024 by Jesse, and it says serviced at Ivory Tower Collections. I like that. You can see here the circuit board that he's got here in order to output for the DIN connector. This is the replacement power board that he had to put in. And then, like, everything in here is really, really clean. So you can tell which capacitors he's changed, at least from this side. He's changed a chip. One of the chips was bad here. I don't know enough about these boards to be able to tell you which chip is which. But, and then this has been wired up. You can see here, everything is really cleanly done here on the top. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with the quality and the cleanliness of work in here. We are going to open this up and gingerly, remove the board and gingerly flip it over so we can see the bottom. And I just have to get the screws out first, so we will kind of snap our fingers and we will be looking at the bottom of the board. Okay, so I've got all the screws out. Let's take a look at the bottom of the board. You just kind of gingerly lift up, slide to the right, and pull it out. So underneath the power board here, obviously we've got our RGB stuff running to the back of the board here. And we'll flip it over. And there we go. So this here, there's nothing wired directly to this switch. Obviously it's being fed from somewhere else on the board. But this is the RGB mod right here for the DIN connector right there. And so we've got a jumper cable here, it looks like, and then maybe another one under the board. Again, everything under here is clean. It looks like the board has been cleaned. You do still have a little bit of flux. That is completely normal. Don't worry about that. But these cables are wired really, really nicely. Certainly nicely than I ever would have done it. We've got another jumper cable out there. Obviously, I'm not going to try to pry that off. But that is Velcroed. It looks like it's really hard for me to show you guys. But it is like industrial Velcroed to the board. Maybe I'll take a picture and insert it here. But really clean. Looking under the board in the case. Yeah, really clean. That the dust that is there is probably from me removing the board and the screws here. But really clean work. Really nice work. And yeah, let's take a look at how this thing outputs video after sliding it back in properly like that. And for those of you who are maybe looking to clean your own systems or whatever, don't forget these little plastic tabs there. Don't just try to yank your circuit board out, because you will crack something and you don't want to do that. So yeah, that is the Intellivision 2 from Ivory Tower Collections. And I'm going to put this back together and we will take a look at what the video output is like. Okay, let's look at the upgrade that this RGB mod provides us. Here again is the RF signal from the first Intellivision from Intellivision Collector. Like we said, good for RF, but still RF. And here is the RGB modded console from Ivory Tower Collections, using a DIN to HDMI converter meant for the Genesis 2 that I picked up off of Amazon. Certainly not the best cable for use here, but it was cheap and quick to pick up and good enough for this comparison. Now we see much more vibrant colors and no discoloration or bleeding. The picture is crystal clear and would look awesome even on a modern television. I also find that the audio is a happy medium of clarity while retaining a bit of the warmth that the RF has. Gone is the slightly tinny sound of the AV mod on the first system that I looked at. Really, in every way, this is the cream of the crop. In fairness, this is a premium service and not cheap, but the results definitely reflect that. Of course, you have your 2 color palettes to choose from, and here's what they look like with Burger Time. Now, let's look at all 3 of these side by side, and we'll add in a purely digital capture emulated in JZIN-TV. Obviously, the emulated graphics are the clearest, but hopefully this shows you the progression of output available in all of the options here. And there you go, 2 options in order to upgrade your Intellivision experience. If you're new to the Intellivision, starting with one of these 2 is probably going to give you the best experience that you possibly could have. You've got the Intellivision Collector version with the composite mod out that still maintains the RF, or you've got the more a la carte Ivory Tower Collections process. Now, something to note is that the RGB board that he used to mod this console is currently back ordered. He does anticipate he'll be getting more soon, but he is not sure when that's going to happen. So right now, the RGB mod is not something that he can do, but he could composite mod a console for you. He could do a lot of different things for you. As for the Intellivision Collector, he has got so many different systems available. He told me he's got lots of them, and he's got different models available, so that is currently available now. But both of these, honestly, neither is a bad option. So if you are looking to upgrade your experience, there you go. I'll post links to both gentlemen down in the description below, and we'll see you next time on Mike's Gaming Gala.